Hi everybody, my name is Jan Dufour and I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. You can reach me by going to my blog at stampmesilly.com. My email address is jandufour@yahoo.com. And if you'd like to order from me, if you don't have a demonstrator, you can go to jandufour.stampinup.net. And for those of you who don't think you're creative, I can tell you, you can do it. Just ask me how. Today is the beginning of September 2021. Currently, we have an annual catalog which came out, that was my pen on the floor, which came out in May or 1st of June. We have a mini catalog that's currently going on till the end of December. They used to call it the holiday catalog, but there's other things in there as well for the seasons, etc. And right now through the end of September 2021 is Celebration. And I can't show you what's inside, but I can show you some of the things. If you want, you can contact me and I can send you out a catalog if you don't already have a demonstrator. Today I'm going to wow you with just cutting instructions, which isn't very fun, but this is going to be a 2-sheet of DSP and many messages with both the stamp set and the one piece of die to cut out all of these different sayings. And then this is optional. I picked pierced blooms because it matches. This paper actually goes with the pansies, but I preferred this one for add-ons, and you'll see as we go along. But again, you can still do it without these. I think when people see this, they get kind of overwhelmed and say, how am I going to possibly use all of those? It's all on one stamp. You cut it out one time. There are more than 15 phrases, which I made 15 different cards, and I did use obviously some additional 8.5 by 11 cardstock for card bases, etc. But I'm going to show you the cutting instructions to be able to use just 2 DSP, and I will show you the cards in a little bit. But I wanted to first explain that you're going to be stamping this one stamp. You can put it in your Stamparatus, which is what I did, just to make sure that I got an even stamping. I did it in multiple colors while I had it all ready to go. And I was going to reach over. And this is what the bags look like. I've got it ready in red. I've got it in, this is a dark green, which I think it's Evening Evergreen. I'm not positive though. I have it in a Misty Moonlight. I also, while I was at it, embossed in gold. I don't know if you can see that very well, but they're embossed in gold on black. And if I wanted to, I could just sit here and, oh, I actually did it, good for me, in black and silver and black and copper. I do like copper, it's one of my favorites. But anyway, the point being that you can do one card or one stamp set, one die cut, get all of these out, and then by putting sometimes just one or several together, you can make a full-size A2 card. I made 15 of them and then made 5, because I had scraps left over, I made 5 additional 3x3 cards. So I'm going to put this away for right now. I'm going to post the cutting instructions, but I'm going to cut the DSP together with you today and tell you what else you need. You do not need to use this DSP. You do not need to use the optional flower-based ones that I used. I can tell you that my next venture with doing this exact same thing for the 1-sheet or the 2-sheet DSP is going to be these two. And then I have the punch, and I'm going to cut out all of these guys here. I may even fussy cut the polar bear just for fun, or the foxes, just to add as my decorations. Now, the many messages is not as appropriate for specifically winter or Christmas, just because they're not those phrases, but it will still give you the idea on how we can go about making that many cards with just 2 DSP pieces. And of course, these are 12 by 12. I would recommend one that is busier than the other. You know, something like this would also go. This is a little bit on the wild side, although if you did it with this, it would be okay. But I wouldn't recommend this and this because they don't blend as well together. Here are my directions. They're going to be posted, but I'm going to walk with you and show you how to cut all of these pieces correctly. So the top one is the DSP one. So I'm going to put the leaves aside for right now. I'm going to leave this here while we're cutting. And whenever you see one of these papers cut up, you look for, and this part down here doesn't count because that's the other, that's the leaves DSP, so don't be looking at that. But you look for common cut lines. So the first one I see, these are all 4 by 4. So I'm going to cut 4 by 4 all the way down to the bottom. And it doesn't matter which end you start on. So I'm going to start by cutting 4 by 4, which is this part here. And then I noticed that there's 3 4s in 12, which is why I cut each of these. And I know it's kind of boring watching me cut paper, but if you cut it right, you'll be able to follow along my next one that's going to have all of the decorating. So we have 3 cards right here. That's what this is. The next part you'll see is 2 3/4, and that goes all the way down to the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 3/4 and set this aside. And these are square, 2 3/4 square. So I'm going to do 2 3/4. And as you can see, these are going to be the ones that are going to make 3 by 3 cards. But we want them cut so that we can go ahead and put those aside. And I can make 4 of them out of that. And there's a little scrap paper. And for now, I'm not throwing away any scraps. I'm saving them. These will be for the smaller cards. And then the last piece to cut on this one is 4 inches for this sheet, but you'll notice these are 5 1/4. So what I'm going to do is make sure that this is 5 1/4. And there's just a sliver to take off. Again, this is not, I throw that away. This is not to scale, but so I have to cut 2 of them that are 4 inches by 5 1/4. So I'm going to do 4 1/4. Nope, 4 inches. 4 inches. And wait, do I want it in landscape or do I want it in, let me take a quick check. I want it in landscape. So 4 by 4. And then by 4, which this is, but that top piece should only be 4 inches. So again, we're cutting 4. This is a scrap to save. And this one matches the other 3. So as you can see, we have 4 card tops here. And we have 2 of these full-size card ones. And then we have 4 of the little ones for this sheet of paper. So this sheet of paper is done. We're going to take the leaves. The leaf sheet has no direction. That's something to pay attention to. But there isn't anything here. So for the common lines here, there's a 2-inch scrap. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that 2-inch scrap off and put that aside for now. Then we have a 3-inch and a 3-inch. So we're going to go ahead and cut 3 inches. And another 3 inches. Oops, make sure that's straight. All right, I'm going to set this piece aside. For these 3 inches, I want 2, or 4 rather, at 4 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and cut 4 inches. I've got both of them together now because they're the same size. And then I'm going to cut 4 inches again. And you can stop and rewind this and look at the paper and figure out. But essentially I have 4 that are 3 by 4 here. I'll set those aside. This little piece that's left on one of them should be 2 3/4 inch square. So you know where that's going. 2 3/4. Let's cut off this small piece. Now this is a little bit, actually no, I'm going to keep it because I know where I'm going to put it. By 2 3/4. So now we have 5 of these, which is what we needed to end up with. And then we have this section here, which I'm going to go ahead and cut off. This should be 4 inches wide, which it is. I'm going to go ahead and cut this 2 inches off because I don't want to cut all the way down into this scrap. You could, because it is scrap and it doesn't matter, but I'm going to go ahead and take off that 2 inches and put that in my scrap section, which is a nice size. Now I can go ahead and cut this at 2 inches. So each one will be 2 inches. And then put them together and cut them at 5 inches a piece. Line them up, and that's, oops, that's 5 inches. And this will also be 5 inches because we cut 2 off of the 12. So that's that. And you end up with another couple of scraps along the way, which we can use later. I'm going to put these scraps away as well. Now, I know that wasn't very fun. I'm going to go ahead and stop for a moment and bring out the cardstock because some of them are tent folds, which is the more traditional, and some of them are the top folds. And I want you to be able to see how this is done. So be back in a minute. Hi everybody, I'm back. I've got all of the regular cardstock here. It's listed, again, it'll be on your sheet. 2 evening evergreen, 2 soft succulent, 2 fresh freesia. And I have a notation here where I'm going to make one of the sheets a tent fold for 2 cards, and the second page is for flowers and scraps. And then 1 bumblebee, which will be 2 top fold cards. 1 bumblebee for 2 cards. 2 calypso coral. There's going to be 2 tent fold cards, 1 top fold card, and then have a page for flower and scraps. And then 2 basic white, which is going to make, actually it'll make 6 3x3s. I just didn't put the 5th one or 6th one together because I wanted it fully covered. All right, so I'm going to set this aside. I'm not sure. You can't quite see that, but that's okay because you should be able to print off a copy that's on my website. But what I wanted to show you specifically, let me pull it down a little bit, is for the 2 evergreens, I want the tent fold. The tent fold, and I'm going to do both sheets at the same time. The tent fold is the traditional one where it's 5 1/2. So you would cut this at 5 1/2 and then score it down the middle, which actually, yeah, I'll just cut it. Normally what I would do is do the scoring on both sheets first and then cut them, but that's going to get too confusing to show everybody. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut. So now I have 4, and I'm going to score them at 4 1/4. So this is where I make sure I don't use my cutting blade. I use my scoring blade. You can do this on the your scoring tool, or you can use this particular trimmer as a scoring blade. Why do I do it 3 times? I don't know. It's probably a compulsive disorder. I tend to do it 3 times. I guess I get the results I want when I do it 3 times or whatever. Anyway, so this is the last one of the evening evergreen, and I'll fold them in a little bit. Now we're doing 2 soft succulents, and we're doing a top fold. So I'm going to cut those both at the same time, but instead of putting them in horizontally at 5.5, I'm going to put them in portrait mode and put it at 4.25, which will make top folding cards. So then I will fold at 5.5 and get rid of my cutting blade. And we're doing this one. I'll do it 4 times this time. Put that aside and do 5. I hope I did that at 5.5. I will go look at it again and see if I did. I did. I was talking, but I wasn't sure I was paying enough attention. Okay, 2 more. Oops, let's see. Yes, I'm making all 4 of these. So 5.5. There we are scoring. 1 more. You can always stop and start this if I'm going too fast. I'm trying to make the video not hellaciously long. For 2 fresh freesias, I'm doing 1 sheet that's a tent fold. So that's the normal, which I will cut at 5.5. And I will score these at 4.25. And that makes the, oops, score, make sure I'm doing this right. And then 1 more score at 4.25. And then it says for the other sheet, I want 1, the second page, actually I didn't use any of the second page. I'm using that all for flowers and scraps. You'll see in the picture that I'm also going to post that I didn't even use half a sheet of flowers and still have flowers left over. But I will put that one aside for now. So for the bumblebee, we're doing top folds. So in this case, I'm going to do 4.25. Just so that I can show you one time what I mean. Once you decide which way you want to cut it, you know that your fold is going the other way. So if you go to, in this case, 5.5, and go ahead and score it, and then turn it around and get ready to cut it, you've already scored both of them at the same time, which makes it a little bit faster. It's not necessary, but it's just a little hint of how to do things. Then we're going to our 2 calypso corals. We're going to have 2 tent folds and 1 top fold. So that means, again, because in this case I'm cutting it at this part, I can do this one more time for you in the scoring at 4.25, and then we can go ahead and cut at 5.5. And so we have 2 that are ready to be made in the tent fold, and then we're using a half a page for the flowers and 1 top fold. So for the top fold, we do the 4.25. And again, I didn't use all of this 1 page, but we'll put this aside for flowers. We'll go ahead and score this at 5.5. And then set that aside. And then we're going to cut our basic white. Now I use the thick because there's not a lot of embellishment on my cards. And yes, before we end, I will show you the cards. But the best way to do it is if you have 12 by 12 paper, because then you can cut it at 6 in both directions. Or I'm sorry, in one direction you cut 6, and then you can go 3, 3, 3, and 3. And so you end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You end up with 8 cards with a 12 by 12. We can only do 6, and there is some scraps that are left, but white scraps are never a bad thing. So we'll put the white scraps aside. We do use some of those. And then we're going to go ahead and cut at 3. Oops. And yes, I am cutting 2 pieces of the thick cardstock, and it cuts very well. These blades are so much better than our older cutter. They last a long time. I've been able to do wedding invitations and a bunch of other things that generally take a long time, but anyway. And I won't go ahead and score these. I'll wait and do those later so that it's not that long. And this is for scraps. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cutter aside. We've basically followed all of these directions and these correct directions for cutting. The additional supplies will be multi-purpose glue. Twine is optional. I used it on one card just to show you. Clear rhinestones, again, that's optional. When you have clear rhinestones, the advantage of that is if you have alcohol markers or stamp-in blends, you can actually color them and they stay that color, so that's good. And then I used dimensionals on some of them. Again, that's really kind of optional too. So let me put this aside and let me go through the cards that I made. And they are in plastic. I'm not going to take them out. But this is the first one, and that's using one of those longer pieces that was 2 by 5.5, using some scrap, and this is one of the sayings and the many messages. Here's another one: be strong, be brave, you've got this. I used a little leaf that I did cut with my the optional die, pierced blooms. Any die can be used that has pieces that you can use to help decorate. And that green was just a scrap piece. Most of these don't have anything inside, or you'll see the inside when I actually make the cards. This one just has little leaves sticking out sending happy thoughts. Again, these are all with the 2 by 5, yeah. Thank you ever so much. Your kindness means more than you could ever imagine. So as you can see, on this one, I used 2 of the many messages because there's more than 15, which is how many cards I'm making. Sending a smile your way. I used a little diamond in there, diamond gem, rhinestone. This one says, thinking of you with sympathy and prayers. And I've got a little leaf. To me, butterflies and leaves are what I usually use when I'm making sympathy cards. I don't know why. Flowers, leaves, and butterflies. You could use birds too, but I don't generally do that. So anyway, and another little rhinestone. This one, we're using the, let's see, this is card number, 11. These are marked. So now I'm using these 4 here on the leaves. DSP, this one just has little things poking out. And if you'll notice, you wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't told you. It makes it look like a pot, but this actually was too far off the page where I put it. So when it was cutting this oval, it flattened the top, so it made it look like a pot. But oh well, that worked out. Here's one. So happy to hear of your exciting news. Congratulations. And at first thought that's a baby card, and it can be. But you can have exciting news like being promoted, that you want to offer congratulations, graduation, all kinds of things. And the leaves are a little bit more masculine. This is one where I just used twine, and it's a happy birthday. Again, these are all using those 4 pieces, and just a card to say hello. And yes, a lot of these are very simple, and that's the point sometimes, to make them more simple. We're going to get a little fancier here. Hope your day is full of love, laughter, and joy. And that's using these that are 5.5 or 5.25 by 4. And so there's 2 of those. And then this one says happy anniversary. Again, with scraps in the background. Then this one uses, this is 1 and 3. So it's using some of these right in here. Put a little gem on there and put a dimensional behind a flower, and that's as easy as that gets. And then the fanciest one of all, which isn't really fancy, but I felt bad because I hadn't been using any of my cutouts, which I had purposely done a bunch of. And I can show you, let's see, of all of the ones I cut out, I still have lots of pieces left and lots of flowers left. So I can make more cards with them later or fancy up another one if I choose. And then lastly is the very simple little cards. These are not mailable. These are 3 by 3. And I've just made 5 of them. You could make 6 because I cut out 6. And I do have a scrap, that I can use. It's not quite as big as the full sheet, but I can do a half, maybe cut it off a little bit and use it by half, but I haven't gotten there yet. I use these for racks or random acts of kindness. I keep them in my purse in a little box that's plastic, and I can hand these out. Inside, I generally stamp something, which is not part of many messages, but I generally stamp something about thank you for your kindness. We have lots of different stamps that say things like you make a difference, and just thank you for being you. Just different little things that people appreciate a lot. This is trying times, as we all know, and some of these people have been at it for a really long time. I've sent a lot of these to my doctor's offices, dentist offices, just to be passed out to give them a little bit of cheer. So those are the cards we're making. 5 of these or 6 of these, and then 15 of the rest of them. And that's all with the simple stamp set that I've lost already. Here we go. Called Many Messages, and the message die, which cuts them all out at the same time. So if you have these stamps, and even if you don't, you can still follow along with the way I made them. And I hope you enjoyed, maybe not so much the cutting, but that you'll come back for parts 2 and maybe possibly parts 3. It depends on how long it takes me to show you how to make the cards. Overall, once this was designed, it took me less than 3 hours to make 15 full-size cards and 5 small 3 by 3 cards. It took me way less than, and that included sending my dies through to get leaves and flowers and that kind of thing. So I hope that you'll tune in for the next episode when we actually start to make flowers. That'll be fun. Bye.